Era salita in camera di un nostro cliente.
Prima di lei ci sono state 3 vittime. Tutte prostitute. Che cosa si ricorda? Ha detto che è stata inseguita in macchina.
Come si sente?
Non lo so, è tutto buio.
La riabilitazione ti renderà autonoma.
Cosa vedi?
Una ragazza che corre con le cuffie, furgone bianco parcheggiato.
Cosa?
Un furgone bianco parcheggiato.
L'unico sopravvissuto è il bambino di 10 anni che si trova in un istituto d'accoglienza.
Posso aiutarti?
È il furgone bianco!
Hanno ammazzato 2 poliziotti davanti a casa tua.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts in this final week of October. I am Mike, and joining me as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom? How's it going?
Greetings and salutations, sex workers. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, Mike. And I know Mike is a big sex worker, too, so I'm speaking directly to him. So, yeah.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be paid to be a sex worker?
He's pro bono.
I'm paid with the enrichment and fulfillment that it gives me.
He's paid with exposure.
No money necessary. Yeah.
Exposure in more ways than one.
All right. If you don't recognize the other voice on the cast, it's Don and Nelly. What's up, Don? How's it going?
Yeah, doing pretty good. Great to be here.
All right. Well, so we did have this week in October where there was not a theatrical release. So we actually had like plenty of VOD to cover. That wasn't really an issue. It was more narrowing it down. What did we want to actually talk about? So a few movies came up, probably one that we might be doing in a couple weeks, but for now we went with Dark Glasses, which is currently on Shudder. Big return for writer and probably more famously known director Dario Argento. Yes, a huge name in the genre is back for the better. I don't know. We'll find out shortly, I guess. So the synopsis for Dark Glasses is as follows. Diana, a young woman who lost her sight, finds a guide in a Chinese boy named Chin. Together, they will track down a dangerous killer through the darkness of Italy. All right, so we're going to get into our general thoughts, I guess, on Dark Glasses. So, Venom, what did you think of Dark Glasses?
Okay, first and foremost, if this movie was directed by any other director, I would give it a much more positive review. But you have to realize when you attach the name of an absolute master of horror and suspense onto a film, there's going to be certain expectations. Now, I always say I don't play the expectation game. I try to go into every movie as dark as possible with as few expectations as possible. But, you know, with a name like Argento, it's kind of hard to not expect at least a little something. And when we had decided to talk about this movie, I was really, really looking forward to being able to tell people that, you know, Argento is back and he is back in form. Unfortunately, my friends, I cannot say that. This film isn't bad. Let's start right from the beginning. I don't think it's bad. For the first 2 acts of this film, I was actually thoroughly intrigued. I was engaged. Despite the attitude of our main character, I thought, you know, it still felt organic based on the fact that she's a sex worker. She has to be kind of standoffish. She has to be kind of a bitch at times. So, you know, that element of her personality didn't bother me that much. It made sense. this movie goes completely off the rails in the third act, in my opinion. Like, I'm on board throughout this entire movie. I'm loving the cinematography, the score, of course. That's the one thing that we can kind of go without saying. The score was great. I absolutely love the score. It's not like, a classic Deep Red or, Suspiria Goblin score by any stretch, but we still got the a lot of the beats that we are familiar with from Argento movies. But I gotta say, man, as a Giallo, this movie I didn't like it much as a Giallo. It almost leans towards slasher a little bit more towards like an American style slasher as opposed to a Giallo, like I said. The movie only has one goddamn red herring. I mean, literally, there's only one red herring in the whole fucking movie, and that's the killer. So it's like there's not a whole lot of mystery. There's not a whole lot of suspense. We never get any explanation of this killer, his motivations, his past. I don't even think we get his name, honestly. So it's one of those things that it's so ambiguous and vague that you just you got to hope that the visuals are enough to entertain you. And like I said, early in the film, I was really into the cinematography. Rome, of course, looks beautiful. Argento knows how to shoot Italy, so that goes without saying. But once we get to the third act and the final chase sequence, which was completely at night, all in the dark, out in the woods, I completely lose this movie. It loses me. I don't know how spoilery we want to get with our general thoughts, but yeah, I've got some major complaints about most of the characters in this movie come the third act. Because when it comes to character motivations and decisions, I didn't even really have a major problem for the first two acts. I thought all the characters, like I said, were organic. They made the decisions that any normal human being would make. But then come the third act, it seems like everybody took a stupid pill. And I'm talking both sides of the fence, protagonist and antagonist. Just for some reason, they all took stupid pills right before the start of the third act. And it just ruins all the goodwill that was made, for me at least, in the first two acts. Like I said, interesting story, interesting characters, good gore. I mean, the very first kill in the movie is nice and bloody. We get a really cool car accident with some, nice aftermath shots. There's legitimate blood and gore in here, but as I've said, and I'll probably repeat this ad nauseum for this episode, the third act just completely loses me. I'm screaming at my television at the main character for how much of a fucking idiot she's acting like in the third act. And again, it's a woman who's newly blind, so I understand she's still kind of getting, the new her new fit into this world, and how she can traverse this world and everything else with the loss of the recent loss of her sight. But man, it's just really hard for me to say ultra positive things about this movie. It's like, as the acts kept going, I got diminished returns from the first act to the second act to the third act. And that's really too bad, because Argento's third acts, I mean, Jesus, the third act of Suspiria is one of the greatest third acts of all time, of horror, history. But yeah, unfortunately, this is a middle of the road movie that if it was done by anybody but Argento, like if this was a first time director, I would probably be praising it a little bit more. I would still be pointing out the same mistakes, but I would be optimistic that a first time director would learn from their mistakes. This is Argento. This is a man that's made countless movies. So, I can't really say that I'm excited that Argento's back in our genre, and I'm not necessarily looking forward to what he does next, but fingers crossed that it's more entertaining than Dark Glasses.
Okay. I will kick it over to Dawn. What did you think of Dark Glasses?
So earlier this year, one of the episodes of my show, the Horror Countdown podcast, did the first director retrospective on Dario Argento. I'm pleased to say that episode is now considered moot, because this would have made my list had it been eligible for inclusion at the time of recording. I had a blast with this. Now, I will say Venom is 100% correct. I do think that this fails as a giallo more than anything, and I think that's its main complaints. The central mystery here for the killer is non-existent. We have two police investigation sequences for a giallo that is absolutely... I can't even think of the proper term. I think it is incomprehensible is close enough. there's no investigation into who this maniac actually is. There's no motivation. There's, as Venom said, there's no name. So, yeah, okay, you got a killer going around stalking people, but then he never really makes much of an effort to invest himself into her life to sort of throw her off the track. And that's, more traditional Giallo tropes, bringing the, that so-called, I think the proper term is amateur detective into the proceedings, because there's none of that goes on in here. I think that's pretty much where it fails. I think the third act is a little bit less than where it came from the first two acts, but I was still invested in this. I still really like the setup here. I do like the relationship that forms between her and the kid. I do like Azia finally getting a role where she doesn't show her tits in her father's film. So that was kind of a fun little side note there. I'm kind of struggling where Venom falls with these stupid characters, because I understand the need to keep the film going, and I see where the point comes in, and especially comes in the third act. And one scene in particular, why the fuck are you giving a blind person a gun? Why is the blind person holding a gun?
So good.
That to me, that was probably the one sequence that really just stood out to me. It's like, okay, you hold the damn thing, squeeze the trigger, I'll aim it for you. I mean, there's no real reason for that to. We'll get to it, but yeah, that was kind of the one real scene where I kind of really felt like character stupidity. I can't say that the action unfolded to a degree that I liked, but I still enjoyed it enough. Some great deaths, a fun little send off at the end, and generally I enjoyed it. I mean, is it deep red? No. Is it tenebrae? No. Is it bird with a crystal plumage or four flies on gray velvet? No. But I would probably say this is a step below Opera. I think Opera was like the best film, like his last good film. I think this one's his best film since then. So, yeah, welcome back, Dario. Fantastic work. Maybe employ a little bit more traditional Giallo tropes next time. But yeah, this was a sight for sore eyes. I absolutely enjoyed it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm honestly still trying to figure out, because I actually kind of agree with both of you. Like, when I was watching it, my initial reaction, just kind of as the movie's going, is like, wow, this is actually pretty good. Like, it definitely feels like, an updated version of a Giallo. Like, obviously the modern setting, the cinematography. I really did like the score and how it was used. I agree. I don't necessarily think it's as memorable as like some of the famous ones, like a Deep Red, but I did enjoy it when I heard it kick on, and sometimes it seemed very emphasized in the movie, which I always like in Italian cinema. I do also think like the first two acts were much better than the conclusion. That's probably where I felt the movie was weakest as well. But I mean, I still enjoyed it, and I guess I'm guessing out of the three of us, I'm the least like schooled up in Giallo. Like I know what Giallo is. I've seen like a good amount of them, but I'm not like an encyclopedia on that genre. So maybe that's why I'm giving more charity to this movie as well. But like I do see like the obvious flaws in it once it hit the third act, or at least like the flaws that Venom's bringing up, which I probably took it down a couple notches overall, but like I was still kind of happy with it. Just I don't know, maybe I'm giving Argento charity just because of where the stage he is in his career, and it's like what should I still expect from Argento? Because he's in his 80s now.
82.
He's the one who decided to make a movie. He didn't have to. So we're going to judge it.
Yeah, he's 82.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree. Like it's like I definitely think is it one of his like top movies? No, but then I look at like what I've seen this year overall, and I'm like, well, you know, it's not necessarily that much worse than a lot of what I've seen this year in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, I would fall on the side of I liked it. Is it going to be a memorable classic that goes down with his better ones? Probably not, but he does have an extensive menu or resume as well. But you know, I guess I'm very much in the middle because I'm not well schooled in even using a gun, period. Anyways, yeah, so I wouldn't put it in like the top of Argento's classics, but I still found myself enjoying it by the end of it, even though I think the third act was definitely the weakest part. The fact that we didn't really get any legitimate motivation or backstory, because sometimes that's like the best part of a Giallo is the way they kind of string you along, and they purposely like some of them it's almost to an absurd level where they purposely make it seem like literally any character in the movie could be the culprit, and then you slowly see the red hair. Yeah, you slowly see the red herrings fall by the wayside, and then the reveal sometimes is like so ridiculous in itself, like it was who and they're doing it because of why. Okay, I'll go with it. But this one, I don't know. I mean, I'm like, did they make it with an American audience in mind, and maybe they thought they had to cut that out, or is it just the fact that like, Argento, the 80-year-old writer, is not the same writer anymore?
Well, they have to be, because it's far more American in its setup than Argento's golden period, because if this is Argento in his golden period, the amateur detective angle is far more invaluable to the film's middle acts. That's one of the defining characteristics of the genre, is the fact that the person who's targeted at the very beginning ends up trying to solve who did it alongside the police. Outside of one interaction that we get, the police are completely non-existent in the film. Nobody is spending any amount of time trying to figure out who it is. You know, there's only like 2 sequences where we see that happening, and far more of the film is focused on, you know, her relationship with the kid, that you know, that takes far more importance and center stage in the film. That's far more of an American concept rather than what Argento was doing back in the heyday. Because you look at, you know, Four Flies, or you look at Cat o' Nine Tails, or, you know, any of the other films that he, you know, not even he made, but, you know, the entire genre pumped out between 1970 and 1975. That's part and parcel to the formula. Somebody survives an attack, the police prove ineffectual, more attacks occur, the person that survived starts investigating who did it to try to, you know, either clear their name or put an end to what's going on, and then it all comes to a head at the very end when the last person left standing is revealed to be the killer. That's a formula that served the genre for well over 200 entities between those 5 years alone. So it's not exactly something that you would see. In Argento's prime, he would have employed that kind of a similar model. And there's shades of it here where we see those small little scenes where, you know, at the very beginning, you see the detectives looking over the crime scene at I think it's a restaurant where the first girl's attacked. Or it's that open plaza where they're
the hotel, yeah.
Yeah, the hotel plaza where they're standing around, they're investigating, you know, it's like, okay, well, I saw this one van drive off, you know, do the checks about, you know, licensing and, you know, figuring out, you know, where the van disappeared to. And then they do the second scene at the girl's house where they, you know, take off the 2 officers' bodies. But outside of those 2 sequences, there's no police presence at all in the film until, you know, it's too late. So that's completely not even a prime era Giallo setup. That's a completely American setup.
Yeah, I mean, even the recent horror release Smile had way more police procedural in it than this movie did. Like the police procedural scenes from Smile should have been in this movie because they were, you know, mildly interesting. And to know anything about the killer would have been that much more satisfying. The big thing for me on Giallos is always the ending. It's always the twist. The reveal of the killer, what their motivation is, what their relationship is to the final survivor, things like that. Obviously we go back to things like Deep Red, Night of a Thousand Cats, Tenebrae, stuff like that. But even a subpar Giallo, like the killer is on the phone, still has a mildly satisfying twist at the end, even though it was a little over the top. It still is mildly satisfying, whereas this one, there's no satisfaction in the reveal of this killer. Zero. There's no mystery as to who the killer is. As I've said, it's literally the only red herring in the entire movie. And even the killer's end, it's foreshadowed, because once you find out what this guy does for a living, it's like, oh, I already know how he's going to die. And that's too bad. I was really hoping that Argento would subvert that expectation. Like, oh, he didn't die the way I thought he would. Awesome. But no, he dies exactly the way we thought he was gonna, about 10, 15 minutes earlier in the movie. So that to me is not Argento. Argento is about great story, great plots, great twists. Great killer motivations, things like that. And unfortunately, this just doesn't have it. I mean, this is an American Giallo, and even calling it a Giallo, even calling it an American Giallo is almost an insult, because, like I said, the Giallo elements just aren't there. The great stalking scenes, the black gloved killer, some of the more like this is a movie about a prostitute that has no sex appeal to it. Like, there's no sexiness to this movie. Whereas Argento's early movies were very sexy. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It loses a little bit.
Some of that is, I feel like some of that is an influence of the co-writer Franco Ferrini, because he was the one that came in the late 80s, and he started doing a lot of the. He started doing like the Tenebrae, and I think he did Phenomena and Opera, and I think he even did a couple of the made-for-TV films in the 2000s era after Argento came back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he was the one that did Do You Like Hitchcock and Card Player, I think. I don't know for sure because I've only seen those films once, so I can't say 100%, but I think he's not one of the stronger co-writers in Argento's career, because he did a lot of the latter era stuff with him.
Yeah, that makes sense, definitely.
Yep.
Good feedback, Mike.
Yeah, you guys pretty much said it there. I didn't have really anything to add. Mm. But yeah, I feel like this was like a stripped down version. It's almost like you show this to someone who hasn't seen a lot of Giallo, and if they like this as kind of a starting point, it's like, okay, well, let me show you some Argento stuff from like when he was in his prime and he was really churning them out, and show you where he emphasizes some different aspects, some different techniques. Because this one, it had some of like the aspects you'd get out of a Giallo, but it didn't really feel full on. Like I think it was you, Venom, that said it almost felt like partially like a slasher with Giallo elements in it. Yeah,
I mean, to me, it's like the most slasher movie Argento's made. Though I will agree with Don. It's probably his best film since Opera. I mean, it's better than The Card Player, and it's way better than stuff like Mother of Tears or Dracula. Oh God, Dracula! I don't even want to acknowledge that movie. But anyway, I'll give him credit for the effort, and as I've already said, and hopefully it doesn't get lost in my review, I did love the first two acts. I genuinely did. I liked the story, loved the relationship between these two. Asia Argento's character, even though we don't see a lot of her, I really liked her performance, all of it. There's positives here, my friends, but obviously once we get into our spoiler conversation, I'll be talking a lot about the issues I had with the third act that pretty much brings down the movie for me. And there's multiple aspects to it. It's not just one or two things.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much good on my general thoughts. I guess one thing, they did kind of go by pretty quick because it was like
85 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it had to have either been 90 or less because it went.
I'll give him credit for that because Argento, he could have put out a 2.5 hour movie and nobody would question it, But if it would have been the quality of this film, I would be ragging on this movie even more. But at least it's 85 minutes. I will say the pacing's great. I had no issues with the pacing. Like it's got a nice steady pace throughout the movie, not big chunks of action, that are spread out. Everything is just, sparse together really nicely. Like I said, it's just the third act of the movie just turns into an American slasher and just completely just I lose interest.
Yeah, and I will say like there the few scenes where we did get something gruesome, they were well done, like the car wreck aftermath. That whole sequence was good.
I thought I saw Sergio Stivoletti do that, and that shouldn't be too much of a shock.
Well, I have a rebuttal for the effects. I thought the very first kill looked great as far as the kill itself. The aftermath shot looked fucking awful. She looked like she had a triple chin. I mean, did you notice how much prosthetic they put on her neck to show the slice? That was a thin woman. And suddenly when she's on the ground with her throat slit, like it literally looks like she's fat, or she has a fat face. So that was a little bit disappointing, but the kill itself was great as far as the attacker going after her, using the garrote, all of that looked awesome. It was just the aftermath I was a little disappointed in because I even froze the movie and I'm looking at it like, Jesus. I mean, her neck grew like 8 inches after getting killed, which kind of freaked me out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that's really the only gripe I have on effects. For the most part, I have no issues with the effects. They all looked pretty good. The final kill looked good. A couple of the ones, and obviously the car accident looks great. But I had to point out that first kill because that aftermath shot, I fucking hate it. If you guys get a chance, just go back and look at it and really eyeball it. And granted, if it was a quicker shot, I wouldn't have noticed. But the problem is that the camera hangs on that shot of the dead prostitute on the ground, basically giving everyone the opportunity to look at the effect and be like, oh, that doesn't look right. Like if we only saw it for a second, we all would have been fine. Oh, it looked great, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Maybe that's just me being picky. But yeah, again, it's Argento. And I'm not gonna rate an Argento movie, or I'm not gonna review an Argento movie the same way I would review like a shot on video gore fest. You know what I mean? There's certain elements, certain filmmaking prowess that he has that I expect in his movies, and we did get a lot of it here. I've already said beautiful cinematography, nice shot selection throughout the movie. The dark scenes weren't too dark that you couldn't see anything. Definitely didn't have the Hellraiser effect for Don. I had no problems with the score, the performances. I've watched a couple of reviews since I watched the film earlier today, and yes, there are some people that are kind of panning the performances, specifically of our lead actress, Eliana Pastorelli, who I thought was fine because, like I said, she is a high-priced call girl. She's always going to be on edge. She's always going to be on the defensive. She's not a friendly person by nature. So I thought her performance was fine. I never had a problem with her character. In fact, I actually liked her character after a while, especially after she made the decision about Chin that she made. I thought that was very admirable, something that she absolutely didn't have to do, but she did it and did it willingly. So, there is some good writing here. Like I said, I love the first 2 acts. I was all in for the story, where the story was going. Obviously, we kind of knew it was probably not going to end in the city, that it was going to end in the country somewhere, which is exactly what happened. But yeah, man, this third act, I can't wait to get into it.
All right, well, I'm pretty good on my general thoughts.
All right, well, fuck it. Let's get into this third act, my friends. I'm going right to it because it's the part of the movie that I have the biggest problem with. Throughout this entire movie, Diana, our main character, is making great decisions all throughout the movie. She's when the police arrive looking for Chin, instantly, as soon as they leave, right after they say we'll be back tonight with a search warrant, instantly she's like, okay, Chin, we got to get out of here. Let's go. Like she wasn't wishy-washy about it. She made the decision instantly. When Chin even showed up at her place the first time, or not at her place, but when he followed her home, again, she didn't really protest all that much. Obviously, she's also living with the survivor's guilt, because she basically, she killed this kid's father. His mother is in a coma, as far as we know at this point, and she's trying to make amends, even though she's lost her sight. Like her life is completely changed as well, just like Chin's. But despite all the changes in her life, all the adversity, everything that she's dealt with over the last week or so, she still takes this kid in. And she has no obligation to do that. So like I said, I liked the characterizations in the film. I liked her decision-making all through the movie felt great. And then we get to the third act, and we get to that final chase. Now, Don has already talked about the gun scene. And this is one of the scenes where I'm screaming more at the kid. I'm not screaming at her, because she's literally telling Chin to aim for her. She's holding a shotgun, a double barrel 12 gauge shotgun. And, it's in her hand, her finger's on the trigger, and she's asking Chin to help her aim. But it's like, I don't know, like Chin turned mentally challenged at that point, because the gun, she didn't even come close with the two shots that she had, not even close to hitting the killer. And I'm screaming at Chin at this point, what the fuck, dude? Aim the goddamn gun for her, would you? So, and to Don's point, yes, who gave a blind woman a gun? There were two other men in that scene who easily could have taken the gun and taken care of the killer with no problem. The fact that these two guys actually had the killer down for a little while, but what's funny is that the two guys, the two good Samaritans, if you will, they have the killer on the ground. It looks like they're about to beat the shit out of him, but then the scene goes to black, and 2 minutes later, the killer shows up. So it's like, well, shit, I want to see how the hell he got out of that fight with those two guys. Like, how does he beat up two guys? Did he kill him? Did he just knock him out? Like, blah, 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 blah. There's questions there. Minor questions, admittedly. But then the chase happens, and this is where I'm just pulling my fucking hair out. My friends, this fucking woman who is newly blind and is knowingly, 100% knowingly being chased by a serial killer. And what does she do? Hello? Is there anybody here? Anybody out there? I need help. Are you fucking joking? Why don't you just say, hey, killer, here I am. Come and get me. Can you hear my voice? It doesn't make any fucking sense that and then when she gets to the dam, same fucking thing. She gets into the dam. Hello? Anyone here? The whole third act, the whole chase scene, I'm screaming at this fucking woman. What is wrong with you?
No one but the killer here.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, what the fuck? And that was my biggest issue, ultimately. That was my just biggest issue with that third act, is just this woman's decision to yell out for Chin. It's like, honey, if this kid left you alone, then, go into survival mode. Don't turn into a fucking victim and start yelling and crying and asking for help. It's like, fuck that. I mean, your life is literally in your own hands right now. Fucking defend yourself. Hide. She does arm herself at one point, though I don't know if she really armed herself so much as she gave herself a new walking stick, a new cane. I actually thought she was pulling it off to be a weapon, but no, she just used it as a cane. It could have been a weapon, I guess, had the opportunity arisen. But yeah, I'm just like, what is wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Like, for 2 acts of this film, you've been a solid character with good motivation, good decision making, and then suddenly you turn mentally challenged once you're being chased. And again, I understand that, the nature of trauma and grief and, fear, just, flat out fear makes you do stupid things. Fine. I understand that. But at no point did this woman think, hey, maybe I should shut the fuck up since I can't see the killer coming at me. Maybe I should shut up so that I can actually hear him walking, or I don't know. It's just some really, really bad decision making. And sorry, folks, I know we skipped about an hour of the movie, but I don't care. This third act is where I had all of my issues. And then we get to the killer's fucking ranch, or whatever you want to call it, and he has dogs. So it looks like he raises dogs, but then we find out a little bit later in the scene that he's actually stealing dogs to then resell. But as soon as we get to that fucking ranch and we see all those dogs in the cages, does anybody have a question on how this killer is going to die? Do we all know he's going to die by dog attack at this point? I mean, he might.
Chekhov's speech.
Yeah, thank you. I just, oh my God. So this is where the movie loses it. Like I said, the predictability of its ending, the stupidity of both of the protagonists, even the antagonist a little bit goes stupid in this third act because I don't know. It just he takes way too long to deal with those two old guys on the road, even though he's armed, but he doesn't decide to use his weapons. He's just trying to punch these people, which doesn't make sense to me. It's like he gets out of his van, he sees that there are 4 people in front of him, 2 males, the woman that he's chasing, and the little kid that she's watching over. 4 people, and he still makes the decision to get out of his truck unarmed and start punching the guys on the road. It's like, where is this sudden like flash of humanity coming from? Like all through the movie, he's just been wasting people nonchalantly. He kills 2 cops in the middle of the street. Granted, it's nighttime. I'm okay with that, but literally without even trying to hide the truck, his face, nothing. He's just taken 2 cops out, unceremoniously. And as much as I like the scene, I remember thinking, wow, that's some balls right there to literally, come out of your van and face an armed police officer and then successfully take them both out. Now, granted, the first one he hit with his car or with the van, so I know there's not much challenge there, but this killer was equal parts brave and stupid at times, and then the ultimate fucking travesty of this film is the fact that we don't even fucking find out who this killer is. We don't get a name, we don't get an occupation, other than he steals dogs and resells them. We don't get any backstory. Literally, the only way that we know this guy is from a scene earlier in the movie where he had already killed 4 prostitutes, and then he comes to see Diana at her house. I don't know if the intention was to kill her right then and there or to case the house so that he can come back later and kill her, more safely. The only thing I could figure is maybe when he got there and realized that Diana has a housekeeper, that makes another witness, which means he has to kill 2 people now in a house that he's not familiar with. So maybe he just decided not to. But the point is that when he first arrives at Diana's apartment, she tells him, "Oh, you stink. I'm going to need you to take a shower or nothing's going to happen." And ultimately, I don't think that's that bad a request. I mean, if you're a sex worker, why the hell would you want to smell like or fuck somebody who smells like dog shit? I mean, if you could just wait a half hour and your next client is coming and he smells like Dracar Noir, then just wait, I mean, and this girl was a high price call girl too. This was no streetwalker. She wasn't a hooker. Let's get that. She was a call girl. She was one of those girls that like services, powerful businessmen, politicians, things like that. So it just, I don't know. Like I said, but the fact that the only motivation that we get from this killer is that she called him stinky, and ultimately that's not the motivation for killing her. Ultimately, he was already going to. I personally am 100% convinced he was already going to kill her. Like I said, he was going to her apartment. They had made a liaison. They made an appointment for a liaison online. They talk about a chat room that they're in. And then, like I said, once she asks the guy to take a shower, he leaves the room for a minute and then comes back and, he's all pissy. Fuck you, you slut. And then that's it. We never see him again until he's revealed as the killer. So
yeah, that's a major departure, at least from a lot of giallos I've seen. Like there really doesn't seem like any personal stakes in the relationship between murderer and victim. It just feels like, hey, there's a serial killer out there, and he just happened to have hit this person's local area, and they just happen to have an interaction because she's a sex worker, and he just decided, okay, you're going to be one of the people I kill. But when we find out, or not find out, but when it's revealed, or however you would put it, it's just like, okay, but why is he specifically killing her? And to Venom's point, yeah, unless he was just so insulted at asking to like clean himself up, like what other possible motivation?
Well, the thing is that remember, he does try to kill her later that night when he tries to chase her down with the van, and she ends up getting into the accident that blinds her. So he's just trying to kill her to finish the job.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm saying I don't think that there's more here than what we're saying. Like, the whole thing is flimsy, but it's still an incredibly very, very, very underwhelming story for someone that launched the genre by having intricate, well laid stories.
Exactly.
Like, it almost feels like this could have been like the encounter should have been a side character that related the story to Diana, and her being, an accomplice and actually hearing the story and knowing who the killer is, that should have turned the attention to him. Like, he definitely should have killed her at that moment, and that been like the instigating incident to draw Diana into the story proper. But yeah, there's still not a whole lot here in terms of, I mean, again, that doesn't even give us, a name. That doesn't give us a proper motivation why he's going around killing prostitutes, because, she's the next one in the list of a bunch. Because, he's already killed multiple people, and, it opens with him murdering the woman who comes out of the hotel. So it's like, the basic idea of him going around killing prostitutes is already there. And, she's the next one on the list, but she gets away, so he has to go back and finish it. But yeah, it's still not a very, very strong setup here. It's a serviceable one, but from Argento, serviceable just doesn't really cut it anymore. Like Venom said, if this is a first time director, okay, I'll buy it. But Argento, yeah, this is still pretty underwhelming. I wouldn't mind an extra 5 to 10 minutes getting a little bit more on the guy if we get an unrated version somewhere down the line. Instead of more attack scenes, I'd like a little bit more investigation sequences that Argento dropped to, move the pace along, but end up doing a greater service by filling in some blank holes in this.
Yeah, this definitely feels like something a fan of Argento would make that wasn't capable of quite capturing the essence of what makes Argento, as opposed to, no, this was actually made by Argento.
Well, he gets the technical qualities right, and I think that's the main thing, is that he gets Argento's technical qualities right, because this thing, I mean, it looks amazing, but yeah, the melding of the technical with the setups and the writing and all of that's what made Argento. And the fact that the other films that he's made, from Bird to, Suspiria and Deep Red and all of the, the other ones in between, all of them were a lot longer. So I don't know if this is like a fan thing, like why you would do it like under an hour and a half. So I mean, it feels more like an homage to him rather than, a fan service thing. Because there's still not a whole lot of, the other typical Argento things. It feels more like it's an homage to Argento rather than a fan service film.
That's valid. I mean, as I'm watching it, it felt like a fan film. It felt like just a big Argento fan, as Mike said, kind of creating an homage to the man, but falling short on multiple elements of it, which is, like I said, the fact that it is Argento makes it a little disappointing. One thing that none of us have actually brought up, and I have a major question about, what the fuck was up with that cold open? Like, was the solar eclipse just there so that she would put on her glasses and then we get the title of the movie? Like I'm sure there's probably some kind of metaphor there, of the solar eclipse, and maybe I'm just not artistic enough to catch it, but I don't know. Does anybody else have any ideas why there's a solar eclipse at the beginning of this movie?
Nope.
I mean, everybody goes blind, including her. So
foreshadowing, maybe.
I mean, the idea that everybody eventually is blinded because during the eclipse you put your glasses on to see the eclipse. So like you can't see the truth for what's in front of you unless you're wearing glasses or something. Because the dark glasses is the title of the film. So. She doesn't see the truth until she becomes blind or something.
Yeah, or maybe something about like the light being shut out, because an eclipse is a metaphor for her going blind, kind of like what Dawn was saying. Because otherwise, I don't know why they even show it, because it's.
But then the whole thing, if you were going to do that, then she's the only one in the crowd that doesn't. If you're gonna foreshadow it, then the way you would you'd set that up as that everybody else is the one that looks up at the eclipse and puts the glasses on, but she just keeps strolling by because she's not bothered by it. It's like she's unimpressed with the eclipse and she's just off to do her work. So I don't know where that doesn't really make as much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, like I said, I was trying to figure out where the metaphor was there with that opening scene, because I figured with somebody like Argento, there is a reason. He's not just going to throw a solar eclipse at the beginning of a movie and take that much loving care to shoot it and make it look that nice if it doesn't have some kind of symbolism in the rest of the movie. So, I guess her eyesight is a valid, way to think about that. The fact that it's foreshadowing the loss of her eyesight coming up soon, but I don't know. It's a little too vague for me, I guess, is all. And I'm usually somebody who likes to dig deep and look at the meaning of, and sometimes overanalyze shit like that. And with this one, I just can't think of anything. It's like I may look for an Argento interview to see if he did an interview about this film yet, see if he mentions the solar eclipse, because I'm so curious. It does look nice, though. For whatever it's worth, it's a nice looking scene. You get that beautiful shot of Rome right at the start of the film, which, instantly you're like, oh, yeah, this is Italian.
Yeah. But as far, the opening clips, I don't know. That's all I could point to is a metaphor for, like, your eyesight going. And maybe, saying, oh, that's going to be the setup of the movie is a woman loses her eyesight.
Or, if you were going to carry it on further, you kind of take the setup of a film called Autopsy, where the killer strikes during an eclipse. Oh,
there we go. That's nice. Maybe the eclipse was just an homage to another movie, that he just likes, or that, I don't know. I'm trying to give him more credit than he might actually deserve for this one, but I do want to say that for the first two acts, I thought this killer was incredibly intelligent. Some of the decisions that he was making were really cool. First and foremost, he paints the van after someone witnesses the van pulling away from the first crime scene, which I guess technically was the fourth crime scene. We didn't see the first three, but I thought that was a good call. Like literally that same night, he takes the van home and he paints it black. So I thought that was pretty cool. Or white. Yeah, it was black and then he painted it white. So that I thought was pretty cool. The other really smart decision that I thought he made was to go after Asia Argento's character first. Like, go after the helper, the person who's actually helping the blind person, so that the blind person, is a lot more susceptible to the killer. The only eyes that she has with her is a 10-year-old Chinese boy. So, it would make her a much more, hittable target, if you will. So this is what I mean, is that multiple characters in this movie make what I feel are really good decisions, but then that all goes out the window in the third act, which is what bothers me. It's like, why is this third act so frantic, so unprepared? For a guy who's been stalking this woman for so long, the whole final scene just felt rushed. And like I said, like he didn't even prepare for it. Obviously, he had just found out where she was by accident because of Chin, calling or thinking that he was calling the police officer. But, so, yeah, it's a pretty good movie. But like I said, it's more than a pretty good movie, actually. I will say it's a good movie. I'm just saying the third act kind of kills a lot of the goodwill that we get in the first couple of acts. Let's see. I'm looking through my notes here, seeing if there's anything else I want to talk about. The fake dog didn't really look all that good at the end. I mean, luckily it wasn't a full shot. Like all you see are the jaws, but even the jaws alone, you could tell that it's a puppet being opened and closed. So, again, if you freeze on it, it looks bad. Maybe if you're just watching it in a darkened theater or in a darkened living room, it's not going to be as big a deal. And then at the end of the movie, this movie's in Italian, 100% in Italian. But then at the end of the movie, we get a couple of Chinese characters speaking to each other in Chinese, and they don't translate those lines. That bothers me. It's like, as an American, someone who doesn't speak Chinese or Italian, I want all the foreign language in the movie translated. I understand that they were probably throwaway lines. It was probably just Chin just talking to his cousin, shooting the shit. talking about going back home to China or Hong Kong or whatever. I'm sorry, I said China, Hong Kong. I don't know. That bothered me. I don't like watching a foreign language movie where they don't translate all the language. And like I said, I am completely cognizant of the fact that they're probably just throwaway lines anyway, but it's a little nitpick that, pecks at me at the back of my neck that just bugs me every time. So there have been many foreign films that do that too, where it'll be mainly in one language, but then someone will speak in another language and they won't translate that. That kind of irks me. And then the final line of the movie was kind of weird. Not weird, but maybe it was supposed to be a lot more thought-provoking than, I thought it was. Basically, our character, Diana, she's at the airport. She's saying goodbye to Chin for the last time, and she's there with her dog, Neria, who does save the day, by the way. I kind of skipped over that. But again, we all knew the way he was going to die. Basically, her guard dog ends up getting out of one of the cages and saving her, basically tearing out his neck, the killer's neck.
He's the aforementioned puppet dog.
Yeah, exactly. That is our puppet dog. But the very last line of the movie, she's talking to the dog and she's petting it and she says, "Well, you're my only friend now." And then I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You have never had any friends. Like, this woman didn't have any friends this whole movie. Maybe she had friends, but we weren't privy to them. She doesn't have a conversation with anybody on a phone other than a John that she's going to be meeting. So it's like, why does she feel now she doesn't have any friends? Where at the beginning of the movie, she has more friends now than she did at the beginning of the movie because of the dog. So I don't know. I thought that was a weird line. Like, she's like, I don't know. Like, maybe she has like a rose-colored view of her previous life. I don't know if that's maybe the case because her life seemed fairly empty. Yeah, she lives in a great house. She makes great money. She's a high-priced call girl. Of course, she lives in a great house, but it's not like her housekeeper was her friend. I mean, her own fucking housekeeper was calling her a whore from the beginning of the fucking movie. So it's not like she was her friend. And she didn't, at no point in the film does she talk to any other call girls or really nobody. She is friendly with one of her Johns. One of the guys that she has sex with. She does two scenes with him, one before when she still has her sight, and then one after when she's lost her sight. And he seems to actually be kind of a pretty cool guy. Like, he doesn't mind that she's blind, blah, blah, blah. He actually kind of finds it kind of like a little kink. So, which I think a lot of us would, a lot of us guys would, but I'll leave that for another podcast. But yeah, just overall, that last line, I don't know if that's unreliable narrator or if I'm missing something. Because in my opinion, she never had any friends in this movie. So I don't know. Kind of, maybe I'm reading into it way too much. Maybe it was meant to be a throwaway line and I'm overanalyzing again. But as soon as she said it, I'm like, wait a minute, you never had any friends. What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm thinking maybe it's more of a reflection of her leaving the industry and trying to adapt to a life outside of it. Like the idea of having survived the ordeal has turned her away from that kind of a lifestyle in general, and now she's starting over outside of being a call girl, and the dog is the only one that's going to be there for her to start the new life together.
I mean, I wish they would have done something to make that obvious in the movie, because, like I said, I don't know. Like I said, this whole third act, beginning to end, this whole act that I have issues with. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen by any stretch, but I don't know. I mean, and what's unfortunate too, the ultimate biggest unfortunate thing of this whole thing for me personally is that Argento is now the second master of horror to return to the genre this year and put out what I thought was an underwhelming film. I know a lot of people liked David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future a lot more than I did, but to me, it was pretty lackluster for what we expect from Cronenberg. So this is 2022 is the year of the underwhelming master of horror return. I really hope Wes Craven doesn't come back from the grave and do a subpar horror movie, because that would just be heartbreaking. And maybe a little funny. Who knows? Maybe a zombie could make a good movie. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this is the second time this year I've been excited about a master of horror coming back to the genre, and it's the second time this year I've been disappointed. So I guess I'll leave it at that.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll say this. If it is his final one, I'm thankful that this is not Dracula.
Yeah, hey, I'll agree with you there.
Yeah, it could be worse. Like it's like, okay, he didn't go out on a bad movie. He just went out on like a middle of the road movie.
He went out on a bad act, not even a bad movie, because it's not a bad movie. I've already said it multiple times. It's not a bad movie. It's a pretty good movie. But yeah, that third act is just so non-Argento that it just, kind of takes me out of it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
All right.
Not much left in my notes. I think I spoke on everything I wanted to speak on.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done here too. I mean, like I said, at least it's fun to see Ozzy not go topless in her father's film, even with nudity in the film.
Yeah, and to actually play like a legit character too, not like some sex pot or something. Like I actually liked her character here. That was good.
Yeah, she was almost like the straight character of
exactly. She was the antithesis of Diana.
Yeah, because usually when you're like directed and written by Dario Argento, starring Aja Argento, you're like, here we go.
Well, I'm going to see her boobs again.
Yeah, and she's going to be doing something very awkward and uncomfortable, considering her dad has the camera pointed at her, but nope, not this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, that's it for Dark Glasses, but let's find out what we have for our listeners for the rest of October. So, Venom, you're up first.
Let's see. The main show, No More Room in Hell. We should be getting together this week sometime to do our annual Halloween commentary. I won't announce that film. I'll wait till we put the commentary out. But obviously, like we do every year, we pick a Halloween-themed horror movie and do, a silly little commentary for you, a little added bonus, if you will. And it's good for us, too, because there's not as much preparation for a commentary, so it helps us out to get an extra episode out. Hopefully that gets recorded this week, knock on wood, barring any more scheduling conflicts. That should be out. It'll be recorded this week, potentially out next week. Creature Comforts, episode 12. I am literally putting the finishing touches on the edit right now, so this will definitely be out before the end of the week. So that is, of course, Creature Comforts, episode 12, where we looked at 2006's Cemetery Gates, the mutant Tasmanian devil movie. Let's see. Honestly, I think that's about all I have that's new. I'm still waiting on my Cut to the Chase appearance for Thrills and Chills. And, I do have one guest spot that I just did last night. I completely forgot about. I was on Gary Hill's Patreon podcast. I'm so sorry, but I completely forgot the name of it. It is part of the Cinema Beef family, but it's specifically a Patreon special. So if you are on the Legion Patreon, you will hear Gary Hill and myself review Cemetery Man from 1994. Believe it or not, this was a first-time watch for me. So if you're interested in my thoughts on that, donate $1 to the Legion Patreon and go check out that episode with Gary Hill. And
I think at this moment I'm more interested in knowing how the hell this is your first watch of that.
I explained that on the not explain, but I mean I give my silly little excuse that it's one of those movies that I've always heard great things about. I've always heard great things about Rupert Everett in the movie, heard great things about the zombies, everything else, the Grim Reaper, representation that's in the movie. I just never got around to watch it. And it's not an easy movie to find either. Like, yes, our mutual friend's Plex account does have it, but I never ran into it like on a Shudder or, a Hulu or something like that where I would have watched it a little bit more readily. So like I said, when Gary Hill gave me the option of 3 movies to pick, Cemetery Man was one of them. And since I'd never seen it, I was very interested in doing it. And if you're interested in my thoughts, which I think you will be, go ahead and check out that episode on Patreon. I'm not sure if Gary Hill puts those out eventually anyway, or if they stay Patreon exclusives forever. But I mean, yeah, it's only $1. So check it out. And I think that's it for me.
All right, Don, how about you?
Yeah, as mentioned, Creature Comforts, look out for that one. still waiting to hear back on a couple of guest spots. It was supposed to have recorded with Cut to the Chase, and I was supposed to have done the Gates of Hell with my friends, the Nightclub podcast, but both of those got pushed back. So I don't know what's going on with those. I only found out that those were recently rescheduled recently. So I don't know what's going on there. And only other thing is the first season of Horror Countdown, where you can hear my now obsolete top 10 countdown of Dario Argento was one of the episodes, because this one would have made the list. Probably number 9 or 10, but it definitely would have gotten on there if it would have been available. So go ahead and check out the now incomplete episode, as well as all the other ones available for just about all of the podcast catchers out there. Go ahead and check that out as we prepare for season 2.
All right. Yeah.
And I did actually forget about one of my shows, but since Mike is on it with me, I'll let him talk about it.
All right. Yeah, I assumed what you're referring to is the second episode of the Crystal Lake Gift Shop,
Yes.
Which featured a special guest Lacey Liu, where we talked about another episode of Friday the 13th the series. I believe the episode was called The Poison Pen, and yeah, fun episode to talk about. Fun time
Damn
with
fun
Lacey.
episode.
And,
I
man,
think,
it was
the
good.
discussion was more fun than the episode. The episode of the Friday the 13th, yeah.
which is not surprising when it comes to these shows. Regardless of what you think overall, sometimes that'll just happen. I'm honestly, because I'm doing Tales from the Crypt for my 31-day challenge, and I'm even finding like there's many more episodes than I remember that are just kind of like okay, like like the good ones are great. Don't get me wrong. But I was so young when it originally aired that I probably just loved everything because I was a little kid. And now I'm like, there's like actually stretches of the show where I'm like, wow, these are not the. I don't know if it's the stories just don't make good adaptations for that half-hour medium, or if it's just they didn't adapt them well or what. But overall, still a very good show. But
you're just a more savvy viewer now than you were when they first aired.
Yeah, true that. Or I'm just old and jaded, one of the two. Maybe a combo of both.
Oh yeah, we're all crotchety. Oh yeah, fuck that.
But yeah, so that's it. I'm kind of in a similar boat with Venom. I think we'll be doing Thrills and Chills sometime soon, and then commentary. Looks like we have a date scheduled for that, so we'll be getting that in time for Halloween. And then main show should return in November. I think it just came down to like a really super busy October with other things going on. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's always even though it is the main show, it's always the hardest put together because it's the one we do more than just straight up talk about a movie on. So there's a little more to get organized and prepared for, and it's a bigger chunk of time you have to reserve to get it done. But so we have an interesting situation for this next coming up episode because we usually. Okay, well, I was going to say we usually record on Mondays, but next Monday's Halloween, so we're not recording.
Oh,
that. So we'll just
We've recorded on different days before. I thought you were talking about the conflict with which movie.
What do you think we're going to do next week or next episode?
Next week, should I say this coming week, we actually do have a theatrical release in theaters, but I'm pretty sure that we all decided to kind of pass on that for another Shudder release.
That'd be my vote. Yeah, that'd definitely be my vote. I just wasn't sure if you guys were 100% on board yet, or if we were still.
I mean, I'm going to go.
I suggested it. Yeah, I was the one that suggested we skip it.
Exactly.
Because you were the one that couldn't even. You were trying to tell us on what movie it was, and you couldn't even remember the title. So it's like if it's not important enough to remember what films in the theaters, I'm not going to give a shit about trying to watch it.
See, I myself am a gigantic exorcism fan. Anything with demonic possession, it's literally like one of my favorite subgenres. So even a subpar exorcism movie, I'm still mildly interested in. So I'm still going to watch it, even if we don't review it this week.
Same here. I mean, my thing was that if Mike can't even remember the film to sell us on watching it, why am I going to go out of my way to watch it?
Yeah, that's valid. I wonder if Mike remembers his anniversary. Are you one of those husbands who has to be
I'm
reminded?
not even sure Mike remembers he's married.
What are these two little kids running around my house? Oh.
Who the hell are you, and why did you pump out these kids 6 years ago?
So did we even say what the movie's going to be that we're doing?
Oh, fuck that. Folks, VHS 94 was in my top 5 for last year. So, of course, we're doing VHS 99. I actually wanted to do it this week, but I got outvoted. So, no big deal. I'm very okay with watching an Argento film. But, yeah, VHS 99, I've got a major hard-on for VHS 99 right now. Haven't watched it yet. I will be watching it multiple times this week, especially since found footage is my theme for my October watches. So I can go ahead and watch it a couple of times anyway, and it still fits my theme. So, yeah, I'm very excited to talk about VHS 99. Again, I'm trying to curb my expectations because VHS 94 was fucking spectacular. So, fingers crossed that we get something comparable to that and that they never return to the realm of VHS viral.
All right. Well, then it is settled. So we will be back probably either in less than a week's time or a little over a week's time, just depending on when we find a time to record it, with discussion on VHS 99. So until then, thank you everybody for listening. I will say happy Halloween now, because even if we record before Halloween, it's probably not going to be up till shortly after Halloween. So hopefully everybody has a great holiday. If you're listening to this, we're probably in this last week of October. So this is like, I don't know about everyone else, this is when I pull out like all the bangers off my movie shelf to watch. I kind of save like the best.
Yeah, same here.
At least the ones the ones I'm most excited to watch. I mean, there are some good movies I watched earlier, but
yeah, that's the way I am. My general watch philosophy is, yeah, you're an hour and 10 minutes. I don't give a shit. You're good enough. And now it's more like, okay, yeah, now let's settle in and let's get cracking.
One thing I will say is that 2022 will be the first year in, close to 40 years that I do not watch Halloween 78 this month. Ooh. I am just so Michael Myers out. I can't fucking look at him anymore. I don't care how good the movie is. I can't look at it. I'm not saying that the recent trilogy ruined Halloween 78. Not at all. Halloween 78 is a fucking masterpiece. I have no problem admitting that. I just am all Michael Myers out. I don't need to watch him anymore this year. I'll return to it next year. But yeah, it's not hyperbole. Literally over 40 years that I watch Halloween 78 every Halloween, and this year I absolutely will not.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, because the biggest reason I'm watching it this year, or at least the first 3, is because this is the first year I actually own the 4Ks of the first 3. So yeah, it's like I have to do it. Like, even if I throw it on and like I have to get up or something, it's like I can't not throw that 4K on. I'm so excited to see it. So
I had the first 4K release from a couple of years ago, so I've already had 4K Halloween here for a bit. Okay. I didn't get the Scream Factory one. I've already got the Lionsgate release. I'm good.
Cool.
Yeah, my Halloween is going to be spent with my favorite barrel-chested Spaniard, Paul Naschy. So
yes!
I'm good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm using the. I think I'm going to check out the Scream Factory Volume 2, because I did Volume 1 last year. Ooh. So I think I'm doing Volume 2 of. I think maybe I'll throw on something else, but I think that's going to be my plans.
Nice.
Cool. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. We will catch you, like I said, sometime soon. I'll leave it at that. Thanks for listening. Let's say bye to the listeners.
Ciao, ciao.
Be safe and check your candy, folks.
Oh, watch those eclipses.
Or avoid the eclipses, one or the other.